In the end, they didn't raise much money in the grand scheme of things, but got enough to help out, getting about $6,250.
For the longest time, the deadlift was my absolute favorite lift. Man, I love it. I'd go in the gym and, I worked out at a small gym in Henderson, Nevada, and if you could deadlift 5 plates, you were a monster. I think the next biggest deadlift in there was like 4 plates, and there was a bunch of guys that could do 3, and they'd get together and they'd all be cheering, and here my dumb Marine ass would walk up and be like, Mongo, 5 plates up and do that little hitchy thing where, I looked like my head was about to explode, and they'd all be cheering. Yeah, and I was like, I felt legitimately strong. I loved it. And then one day, this guy just walks in, and he loads up 5 plates, and I'm looking at him like, who's this guy think he is? Like, I'm the big guy. And he does it for reps, like a lot of them. I'm just watching him. I'm like, what am I looking at right now? This is crazy. That was before my first competition. I had no idea. Fast forward, I was training at Iron Addicts, and I could do, I think my max was maybe like 550. I'm feeling pretty strong. And like the second or third day in that gym, I see Stan Efferding. Yeah, that guy. And he has 6 plates on the bar. Crazy. And he does it for like a set of 10. And then he just walks out and gets in a minivan and leaves. I'm like, what did I just watch? He just literally, oh yeah, so the guy we had the deadlift bar set up and we were all rotating. There was like 3 or 4 of us. And he walks in the gym and, hey, just asks if he could get a quick set in. So we're like, yeah, hell yeah, man. Stan Efferding. You don't say no to that guy. And without warming up or anything, he puts 2 more plates on there and does like a set of 10 and doesn't say goodbye or anything. Just walks out of the gym, gets in his he had a white minivan, and he drives off. And I was like, what did I just watch? What just happened? Now, granted, there's lifters and there's lifters. And he's like one of the best that's ever done it. One of the best masters lifters of all time. I think he's the only guy in his 40s that had a 2,000 pound total. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. And, even though his weight class is up there, I think he's like in 260 or something. That's still crazy. So crazy to think that a guy in his late 40s had a 2,000 pound total. And here I am, I'm spouting that I'm one of the best in the world, and I haven't even broke 1,700 yet. But that's how far the curve drops off. There are a couple of guys in history that have, in my weight class, that have broken 1,900. I think 2 or 3. And then there's maybe a handful, another 15 or so that have gotten into the 1,800s. And then after 25 lifters, that's where the 1,700 mark is. And then it doesn't go very far before the 1,600 ends. And then there's a whole bunch in that 1,500, 14 to 1,500 pound total. A couple hundred in there. But I'm saying, like, if you look at the all-time list of all time, it drops off really quick. So if you're in your late 40s, 50s, and you're in that 14 to 1,500 pound total range, you are an elite level lifter if you're under, I want to say under like 230, 240 pounds. I don't know about the super heavyweight guys. I'd have to go look at their weight classes. But again, I would imagine it's, even though the numbers are probably higher, it probably drops off pretty steeply. Maybe I'll do that today. I'll check just to see, because I know there's some big boys that are putting up some good numbers still. There's one guy that's close to 50, and he's got close to 1,000 pound squat still, which is crazy. But I think that guy weighs like 400 pounds. What's his name? Anybody know that guy's name? I was watching him on YouTube. They just said, this guy's almost 50 years old, and he's squatting like 900 plus pounds. That is insane to me. So, I get guys that are telling me all the time in my comments, like, oh, I only have a 1,300 pound total. That's awesome. If you have a 1,300 pound total and you're in your 40s or in your 50s, you're legitimately strong, and you should not look down on that at all. One of the things I wanted to touch on, I've been working with a lot of you guys in the community. A lot of you have been helping me fine-tune both my lifts and my programming, and a lot of you have awesome information. But there's one thing I've noticed. You guys get in this competition mode where, don't get me wrong, if you're competing, if you guys are having a friendly competition amongst each other, there should be rules, and you should adhere to the rules. There's got to be some kind of standards to judge the lifts by. And, you know, if you don't meet those standards, then it doesn't count for competition. I totally agree with that. I mean, that's the whole point of powerlifting. Some of the rules we have are stupid. And people ask, like, well, why is that rule? Like, why is that rule is so dumb? And I'm like, I agree, but if they don't have standards, they don't have competition. Like, they got to have standards, and they got to hold people to those standards. Now, should some of those standards be changed? Yeah, probably. And one of the things I noticed with some of you guys is you are so locked into this rigid way of training where it doesn't count even for exercise if it doesn't meet those competition standards. A good example would be bench press. You know, if you don't pause it on your chest and you don't lock it all the way out and your back's not totally flat, with your feet flat on the floor, then it doesn't count as a bench, and you shouldn't post it and say you did that number. Except for that doesn't make sense for training. Exercising, you know, like pull-ups, for example. If you're just pumping out a bunch of pull-ups to get your back pumped up, and you don't go all the way up and you don't go all the way down, did you not get exercise? Are you saying that it didn't help your back get stronger? Because most people that are doing pull-ups aren't trying to compete. They're not trying to show off that they can do a perfect pull-up. They're trying to get their back bigger. And if that's the case, you're rolling, you're pulling, you're doing your thing until your muscles wear out. That's your main concern, not whether you went all the way down, all the way up. It doesn't count as a rep. This isn't the Marine Corps. You're not testing for fitness, you know, to get promoted. You're doing reps so that your back gets bigger. It's the same thing with bench. Any lift, lengthened partials, overloads, half reps, pin squatting, for example. You know, I might put 50 to 100 pounds more than I'm capable of squatting on the bar, and I might only squat halfway to the pins. And you would say, well, that doesn't count. That's not a squat. And I'm like, yeah, no shit. It's an accessory lift. I'm overloading for a reason. Same thing with bands, chains, whatever. If you are only capable of doing perfect reps, you are holding yourself back. And that's why you're not getting stronger as fast as the other guys. I see the comments were like, oh, his bench is only getting bigger because he's on steroids. Well, that's definitely a big component of it. But what else is he doing differently? He's not doing linear progression, I can assure you. Linear progression is where you do the same amount, the same way, every day, and you try to add a little more weight to it each time you go into it. And you see these guys that can bench, you know, 350, 400, 420 pounds, and every week they're doing their max reps. They're benching to that max number, but they're not getting stronger. Why aren't they at 500? Because they're maxing out every week. Your body is strong enough to hit 420 pounds, but you can't add enough weight to that to cause your body to adapt to doing 425 pounds, because you can't do it. You're already maxing out. If you're pushing your max every single week and you can't add to that, you will not get stronger than that max. Something has to change. You need to add more reps or more weight. Something's got to change. You got to change the range of motion, and you got to change the grip width. You got to change the angle you're pressing from. There's a whole bunch of stuff you need to do once your body is at its top end of linear progression. And if you don't, you're not going to get stronger. Or if you do get stronger, it's going to take forever. It will seem like months and months and months. I get these guys, one of the guys I was training, he's just complaining, my bench won't get bigger. It just won't get bigger. It won't get bigger. But he can't humble himself to lower the weight to do work in different rep ranges to build that strength up. He's got to max out every week. He's got to, it's like an ego thing. I don't understand it personally. Well, I kind of do, because you know what? We were doing the same thing when we first started training. When I first started training, linear progression worked awesome for, I would say, 6 months to a year. But then I got to a point where I just could not add another ounce to that bar. And I was stuck at, like, I want to say 290 pounds for what seemed like an entire year. And nothing I did, no matter how many reps, no matter how many days I went to the gym, nothing would add to that. And I just couldn't break that plateau. And that's really where I'm at. You know, Bob's program worked really good for, 2-3 years? And I'm not really changing so much the program itself as far as, like, what reps and what weight you use on what days. It's more the way I'm doing the movements is the big stimulus change. For a lot of people, when you're doing linear progression and you do the same movement over and over again, sometimes it can be as simple as just changing your grip width on the bench press. Or for squats, maybe going from high bar to low bar, or changing to front squats, or rotating a variation of those. Deadlifts, it can be adding deficits or stiff leg, or maybe a different barbell. Changing some kind of stimulus, going from sumo to conventional, and then rotating all those in. If you can add as much variation to the lifts that you do on the platform as you possibly can, while still keeping the exercises to where they have direct overlap to what you're trying to do, you're going to have a lot more success than the person that just does the same movement day in and day out and doesn't change anything, and can't change anything because YouTube might criticize him for not doing perfect reps. Screw that. What are your goals? My goal is not to see who the best at exercising is. I don't give a crap. My goal is to see how much I can lift on competition day, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get that. I don't really care what anybody says in the comments about the sets I'm doing. Frankly, they're not there to lift the weights for me, so, you know, what I say, unless you start paying my bills, I don't need to listen to you. As far as rants go, this is probably one of the more incoherent ones that I put together in a while. So I'll be really shocked if any of you made it to this point and listen to me ramble on. It's like I have a clear idea of what I'm trying to say, but sometimes the brain just doesn't. Anyway, if any of you guys found any of this even mildly entertaining or useful, or you hate it and you want to let me know in the comments, please drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts. As always, I love you guys. I'll talk to you later. Peace.